We have Pete's power rankings. Some movement after a big week 1.
You want me to do my Canadian Football League power rankings?
Do you have one?
Montreal, number 1.
Okay.
They're the number 1 team. Out west, you got a couple teams. Edmonton, BC's back because Nathan Rourke is back playing.
Nathan Rourke.
Yeah, I love watching the Canadian football. We got a major.
How can I forget Nathan Rourke?
I actually had to grind Canadian football tape for the first time ever for the NFL draft this year. Quantez Stiggers got picked, and then he gave up a catch in the fourth quarter yesterday to Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
But he was on the field, which is awesome.
That's great.
So
it's a great story.
All right. His top 5 as it stands right now. Kansas City Chiefs still at number 1. San Francisco 49ers moving up to number 2. Green Bay Packers take a little bit of a tumble all the way down to what? 15? Oof.
Yeah, because, the quarterback situation.
Yeah. Validly so. 3, Buffalo Bills. 4, Detroit Lions. 5, Houston Texans. 6, Dallas Cowboys. 7, Baltimore Ravens. 8, Philadelphia Eagles. 9, Tampa Bay Bucks. Moving on up to the top 10. And then 10, Miami Dolphins after a big home win against the Jags. Bottom 5, not much changing.
And I don't think you're going to see the bottom team change all year.
These may not change. Washington Commanders at 28. Denver Broncos at 29. Las Vegas Raiders at 30. Although they gave a fight to the Chargers. They may move up. They may have some wins this year. New York Giants at 31. Carolina Panthers at 32. Those may be set in stone, though.
By the way, those are in your inbox, in case you're wondering, Kyle.
I just had some trouble with my printer this morning. So our fabulous producers in the back, Debo there, got me a big printout. I got all these papers, but I like to see what Mike's doing. This isn't a test that we get in trouble for cheating on, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here.
All right. Time to do our Goldilocks segment, though. Who was too high? Who was too low? And which team was just right? Kyle?
Okay, for me, the team that's a little bit too high is the Los Angeles Chargers. And I know that they had a win in division, and I know that they've got a new coach, they've got a great quarterback, but they still have a lot to prove to me. Joe Alt did a fabulous job. We're going to talk about him later. I think that this team is built the right way, but there's just too many holes on that team at the skill positions that I think when they get into a game against a team not named the Las Vegas Raiders, they can see themselves in an arm race where they just don't have the munitions to fight back. And in that division, you're going to see it sooner rather than later, right? But for the Los Angeles Chargers, a little bit too high for me there in your rankings. That's all I got to say about the Chargers, man.
I have to agree with you. Obviously a big win. Anytime you're facing a division opponent, it's never easy. But I was really unimpressed with their interior offensive line. Joe Alt, awesome at right tackle. Rashawn Slater, obviously, top 5 to 10 left tackle in the NFL. They're solid there, but they were getting pressure at will on the interior. Zion Johnson had a bad game. Bradley Bozeman does not look like a starting center in the NFL right now, unfortunately. And so when that's the case, and you don't have the wide receivers that you trust, I just think this offense is going to go stagnant a lot. And maybe they can run the football, but
Justin Herbert's going to run for his life.
But the offensive line will get. I mean, every offensive line in the league stunk this week.
That's also true. So
I don't know if that's the case. I watched the Niners dominate last night.
Okay, that's the one. Well, the Jets might be bad on defense.
Kansas City Chiefs did okay.
Hey, here's the other thing about the Chargers. Just give me a look, and they're going to be higher than you think because look at the next 5 games or 4 games what they play. This week is a layup. They play Carolina. Carolina couldn't beat the number 1
at Carolina though.
They'll be pissed off from last week.
No Derek Brown now. Do you think they're beating them?
Yeah, that's tough. And
no. So they'll start 2-0, but then Steelers, Chiefs, the next 2 weeks for them. That's when we'll find out.
Well, where's the Steelers game at?
Steelers is in Pittsburgh. And the Chiefs are at home, but there's no home games for the Chargers. So
yeah. And then 5 is a relatively
Denver Broncos.
Yeah. So if they win one of the 2 in the middle there, they're 4-1.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, I'll talk to you in a few weeks about this then, B.
I'm ahead of the curve usually.
All right, my team that's too high is actually a team that they just will be facing in a couple weeks. So we'll see who's actually correct here. Pittsburgh Steelers at 12. I just think, yes, they went on the road, beat Atlanta, obviously massive win, but I think a lot of that more showed me Atlanta is fake in a number of different ways or has their own issues. And I just don't see the Steelers offense being able to, 18 points in this one. That's kind of the max I see with Justin Fields at quarterback. Now, maybe with Russell Wilson, it's different, but outside of George Pickens, teams will start saying, hey, they really don't have anyone else we need to worry about here and start putting a little bit more attention his way. And then I just think offensively, they're just don't have a ton of talent. And they have a young offensive line that was not that good in their own right. So I do think that the Steelers defense is good, but I don't think it's so good that this is a top 12.
TJ Watt is still like the best
Who should
dude
be
is
ahead? Who should
unbelievable.
be? I mean, you guys say they're too high. Who would you put ahead of them?
Well, I'd put the Jets ahead of them. I know their
That's-
defense got trounced, but they faced the 49ers. It's a little bit different animal. And Aaron Rodgers looked far and away better than, Justin Fields, at least.
Yeah,
past,
but Justin
so.
Fields, you could gimmick up some stuff for him. I'd keep him in there and let him do stuff. Okay.
I do feel like the Steelers and the Bears are similar teams. So you have those 12, 14.
Defenses will
Chicago
keep
Bears.
them in games. They've got some young
Offenses are-
quarterbacks. They're
right,
trying to
doing
figure out
much.
what
Right.
their style of play is.
right.
But I mean, I'm definitely not sold on the Steelers yet. And it was a lot of.
I'm not
bad
sold
from
on
the
them yet either,
Atlanta
but I put
Falcons.
them there just because. Look, it was an impressive opening victory on the road against a team that everybody had winning the division.
You're right.
All right, who's too low?
For me, too low is the Arizona Football Cardinals. And there's a lot that you can glean about this team when they go on the road. And for those of you who don't know, when you
You have them
travel,
27th. You have them 27th.
when you travel across the country, 27th is too
Yeah.
low for me, for Arizona Cardinals. They've got a quarterback who I love. Kyler Murray's great. I think he really is. They've got a running game, which can keep you in the football game. But you know what? They had to go against this guy named Josh Allen last week. When you go across the country, when you go east, it's a lot harder for teams to go east, okay? Teams are going to be coming to Arizona. They're going to make the long trip there. But at the end of the day, Marvin Harrison, the production wasn't there week one. He was on the field a ton. He was open a lot, but they weren't able to get him the football. I think they take a look at the film, find what works for them. I think they do stick with the run a little bit more heavily to keep them in the game. But they had these Buffalo Bills on the ropes in the first half, okay? Josh Allen had to go MVP Josh Allen, the guy that we know and love. He just went out there and let it hang on those guys. You're not going to play him every week. You're not going to be playing against the number one offensive line in the National Football League and the Buffalo Bills every week. They look to be in midseason form. So for the Arizona Cardinals, I think it's a little bit too low. I think obviously in that division, we're going to have some question marks. We saw the Rams look shaky at the offensive line position. We could get after Matt Stafford in a division. There's a lot of question marks there. The biggest one is, why are the Cardinals so low on your list?
I can't let you just go with that Buffalo Bills, the best offensive line in the
Yeah,
NFL.
I mean,
the
that's-
Philadelphia Eagles after week one.
A lot
house.
to prove to me for the Eagles. Can they keep that group together? I mean, Mekhi Becton is a tackle that moved to guard. There were some things that I wasn't crazy about from a technical standpoint. Obviously, him and Lane Johnson are going to get to know each other better. That's a great O-line. But I'm a Cromer disciple. Aaron Cromer's the offensive line coach for the Buffalo Bills. I know the technique he teaches. All the technique was on display across the board from that.
I'm with you.
offensive line.
That line doesn't get to do what it deserves.
The problem with the Cardinals, and I think they're better than 27th, but they do not have playmakers on defense outside of Buddha.
Nobody.
They just do not have guys that can get after the quarterback.
They
And
got
they
two
face some good
safeties
offensive
and
line.
their inexperience on the edges with the corners. You know, Murphy Bunting is the
And
guy
they
we know.
schemes,
But, like-
even against this wide receiving core that's objectively, middling at best, I think, for this Buffalo Bills, they were still scared of their corners. They're still backing them out at the snap, really trying to put a cap on opposing offenses because they can't go mano-a-mano. They don't have the guys.
They're going to win some
to
close
do that.
games.
They're
They're
going
going
to
to
be
beat some good
look. The
teams.
Cardinals are
this
going
year.
to be feisty and a pain in the butt for everybody, but I don't think they're going to win. It'll probably get 7 is the most they can get.
And they're not in a good division to just pick up a couple here and there.
Yep,
The pass
'cause
rush.
Seattle's
You
gonna-
mentioned the pass
Seattle's
rush.
gonna
They
be
need to
tough.
play. They need to play Gardeck more. I think he's one of those guys.
He's
He
like the only
comes
one.
off. He's the only
But
one.
he gets just annihilated in the run.
I know,
They
but you
can't.
got to
So
play
they,
the
they
pass.
have
You
They got
can't, be, you
issues.
can't be a specialist anymore. You need to be a guy that can do both in today's game.
You got to be able to rush the quarterback at some point, though.
exactly. All right, my team that I think is a little too low, Indianapolis Colts, had the Texans, took them down to the wire. Now, I think they were outmatched by the Texans, but the Texans, rightfully, are a top 5 team in your rankings. And to do that, and I was at home, it was week 1, it's a divisional opponent, but what I saw from this offense, if Anthony Richardson can just hit on a few more,
Isn't that the question, though?
But it is. But also, these guys are running wild. The talent they have at wide receiver now, with what Adonai Mitchell looked like week 1, him and Brian Thomas Jr. both look like
It's the
home
Kentucky
run
Derby in Indianapolis.
They're
It's just a bunch of friggin' horses running around. The quarterback
The
position.
quarterback's erratic, though.
quarterback is
The
right.
quarterback's erratic, but he's also very young. He's got 17, 18 games now started
And
since high school,
right.
or including high school. or
the
something.
defense was
So
awful, by the way.
The defensive line got
Some
gas in the
pressure.
run game. They can. So I think a lot of that though was who they faced. I think this Texans O line is very legit, especially in the run game. Those 2 guards were moving people. Kenyon Green.
I think they're
Shaq
that.
Mason.
You know, talk about one of the better offensive lines. That might end up being one.
Shaq
Texans look
Mason's
very
a beast.
So I think that to
Scruggs
me
is good too.
Defoe and Grover Stewart are still your DTs. Now, they don't have much depth at that position, but those guys I trust throughout the course of the season. I think they'll figure that out. but they got some pressure. They could rush the passer at different areas. I thought Kwity Paye looked like the best I've seen from Kwity Paye. I thought Latu, when he wasn't facing Laremy Tunsil, is going to get pressure on guys. So I think they have the horses to do it. Defense is an issue, but I think this offense is going to be like a borderline, probably a top 10 unit, borderline top 10 unit.
If the Packers had Love, and that's where the Colts play this week, would you be picking the Packers or the Colts?
I'd be picking the Packers.
So then they'd be going 0-2 out of the gate.
True, but we're talking like
We're talking about 2 playoff teams.
Yeah, but again, at some point,
Talking about the highest paid
Colts have
quarterback.
to prove to people at some point that they can win the division. And all we ever hear is the Colts are good. The Colts are good. When was the last time the Colts? What was it with Andrew Luck?
The RCA Dome.
Yeah, I mean seriously.
Well, Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil saw some years. They had a Super Bowl year in Lucas Oil, did they not?
I mean, maybe I'll give you a little bit of that.
That was
Maybe
the
they could be a
Bears.
little higher,
Yeah.
but they got to prove it to me first. I'm a prove it guy. The Colts, everybody always talks about the Colts. Prove it to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Fair enough.
the stuff that makes you go, that makes you love Anthony Richardson, and then it's the throws that you might yawn at. It's the crosser, a 10-yard hitch route that
Well, I missed Mitchell.
he sails.
I missed Mitchell twice.
You
for
got to
big
hit the
plays.
layups. You got to hit the layups. And that's one thing. Aaron Rodgers last night was hitting the layups, the sticks throws and stuff like that. If Anthony Richardson can hit some sticks throws, put the ball in the guy's hands, his ability to run the football, be a real threat there on the edge of the defense, it's going to make that offense so much more explosive and dangerous. I really like the Colts.
I think there's. Let's see, who are they next year? 23. Ahead of them is the Falcons right now, the Browns, Seahawks, Rams, Vikings, Jags.
Oh, the Browns.
Yeah, well,
But then right behind them is the Patriots. I don't know. Maybe it's just that's like the tier ending spot where it just feels like they should.
I mean,
be
the
a little-
Browns are a talented roster. It's just the quarterback.
Oh,
stinks.
boy. There's no hope in Cleveland. When you don't have a quarterback, there's zero hope. And right now, they do not have a
I
quarterback.
feel good about my preseason question about the Browns, which was, do they have the cojones to bench Deshaun Watson? Because James Winston would win them games.
100%.
He would win
He would
them.
get those
Deshaun
guys
Watson will
juiced.
not.
Jameis Winston. Well, think about it. They keep talking. He doesn't have his tackles. He doesn't have Nick Chubb. Well, they didn't have him last year, and Flacco took him to the playoffs.
Yep. Off the couch.
Right.
Off the couch.
All right, finally, the Goldilocks pick.
Goldilocks pick. For me, it's the Baltimore Ravens. And we watched week 1, Baltimore Ravens going to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they took them down to the wire. Granted, it wasn't pretty at all up front. I'm going to say this. You're not going to play against Chris Jones every single week. You're not going to play against Patrick Mahomes every single week. And okay, the Kansas City Chiefs got better. We saw weapons on offense. But for the Baltimore Ravens, I think if they can continue to play their brand of football, which is get the ball in Lamar's hands as many times as possible, if he can stay healthy, this team will have a chance to be competitive at the end of the year every single year. Look, we like the guys on defense there in Baltimore. They need to find a way to make big plays in big situations. One turnover may have changed that game. Another turnover may have changed that game. And obviously, you get your tight end, Isaiah Likely, in some white cleats, and you could be looking at a different, 1-0, 0-1 type situation. But you still have Lamar Jackson. They can sure some stuff up on the offensive line. Falele really gives me some cause for concern. The center, there's some issues there. But at the end of the day, you got Lamar Jackson. He can make right mistakes. He can make some mistakes right.
I'll say this about Lamar. If there's any quarterback that I would want behind bad guards, like a DT bearing down on you, he's not going to sack Lamar first time. He can create even when there is that interior pressure. So it's obviously impactful, but Lamar is like the unique dude who can get around.
And right tackle, I mean, that's an issue too. I mean,
Sorry,
their offensive line's an issue. It's a major issue. But here's the other issue: pass rush. They manufactured it last year. McDonald does a great job of manufacturing it. Well, can they manufacture it now? And they didn't. Ajabo had the 1 sack, but where was the other big time pass rush on that team?
I saw some good protection last week from those Kansas City Chiefs. The offensive line looked pretty good.
Well,
I think they just went up against.
But other than Jawan Taylor, you should be able to attack him every play.
Well, here's the thing, and everybody talks about Jawan Taylor, how he's a liability. I think that his style of play matches up with the guys that he plays next to. So he's got Trey Smith at right guard. And one thing we know about Trey Smith, we were talking about this morning, he's got eyes in the back of his head, and the back of his head is pointed towards that right tackle. So when the inside move comes, Trey Smith is there more often than not to make the end pay. Jawan Taylor loves to get off the ball quickly. Okay, so you see him time that snap up. It almost looks like offsides, but I promise you, it's not offsides. Okay, he's getting to his spot quickly. He wants to cover that defensive end up as quickly as possible. And he says, if you want to go inside, go inside. I got a big homie waiting for you. So Jawan Taylor understands the weakness. He doesn't want to get his edge taken. He doesn't want to get the edge taken. So he covers guys up. And sometimes you force that bull rush to fall inside. That's when Trey Smith's waiting. So I don't have concern about Jawan Taylor.
I used to have an alarm for the quarterback apologist. Well, now we have one for the offensive line apologist.
This is an explanation. This is an explanation for why Jawan Taylor
he's
does the
below
things
average as a right tackle.
And relative to his offensive line, I would say yes. But he knows the strength of that unit's on the inside. So he's going to funnel everything to that inside.
It's the best inside three in the league.
Yep.
Yes, sir. All right, my team, my Goldilocks, Houston Texans at number 5. They're just they're there. They are right there in the mix with the best in the AFC. I think the talent you saw in that roster, you really saw shine in week 1. Some of the additions, whether it was Stephon Diggs, whether it was Kenyon Green coming back at left guard.
Joe Mixon.
So Colts are a good team on the road, division rival, to really put a hurt on them the way they did, to really put up 29 points against that defense. And CJ Stroud kind of had like a B- game in terms of like by Stroud standards, and still put up a bunch of yards. And mixing in this running game now just provides such an element that they didn't have last year, that they're tough out. I'm not putting them in the caliber of the Chiefs right now. No one is in the AFC, in my opinion. But that is a team that could even go into the Arrowhead and beat them. Like they have places where they match up well against pretty much everybody, because they're just a talented football team.
It's interesting to me to see the success that Joe Mixon had in this destination, being on the Houston Texans now, because usually you see these running backs, they leave the place that they were, and then they don't have the juice anymore. We see a lot of these running backs have second opportunities places, and we'll get them some handoffs, but Joe Mixon was a featured back in this offense. Joe Mixon is a big part of this offense. It adds another dimension, another layer that makes him even more dangerous, and it's scary. The Houston Texans, B- game, B game for CJ Stroud, and they still go and do that on the road. That's big time football.
I'm curious to see what their offense looks like against the Bears defense this week. That one will be a good matchup.
I'm curious to see what Caleb looks like.
By the way, and I wrote this to lead into the power rankings. It's the overreaction. It's 1 week.
Yep.
1 week, and we got this guy is a star, and that team is going to the Super Bowl, and this team stinks. I mean, right? I mean,
isn't that how this works, Pete?
Yeah, but it's so you can't get a gauge on a season until October comes.
Yeah.
And you can't find out anybody's really good until November comes.
Well, that's why we're policing the overreactive takes. That's what we're doing. That's
what we like to do.